Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. I'm Vaughn Perry, the Director of Equity with the 11th Street Bridge Park, which is a project of building bridges across the river. This is the second of 3 community conversations that we are hosting. These community conversations are really an opportunity to hear and learn from different perspectives in our community. They are designed to further discuss Urban Institute report that came out in June 2021 that focused on the 11th Street Bridge Park's implementation of their equitable development strategies. And today's conversation is going to be an opportunity to learn from some amazing nonprofit organizations that I have had the opportunity to partner with over the last year for a program we call the Thrive East of the River program. In a second, I'll get a chance, you all to get a chance to learn a little bit more about them. But the Thrive program, over a year ago, we wanted to focus on how we could support Ward 8 residents and how could we pull all of our resources together and do that collectively. And so what came from that was this idea around focusing on universal basic income. And so maybe a couple of months after we had that initial conversation, the pandemic hit us and hit our community hard. And we all agreed that this would be a great opportunity for us to explore that idea around universal basic income as a response to how COVID was impacting our community. So what was birthed from that was the Thrive East of the River program, where we were raising over $4 million for. Ultimately, we had a pilot group of 500 families where we were providing $5,500 of financial assistance, monthly groceries, and weekly groceries and monthly home goods. And so it's been a tremendous success. And so we thought today would be an excellent opportunity to talk about the power in partnerships. And we're going to talk a lot less about the details of the Thrive program, but more on what we thought were the benefits of partnership and collaboration. With all of that being said, I'm going to hand off the mic to Michael Cohen from the Urban Institute, who has graciously agreed to moderate this conversation today. Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, no, thank you, Vaughn. So a few housekeeping things. We'll have some time at the end for folks to respond to questions. So if you have questions that come up, feel free to put them in the comment section and we'll try to get to them at the end. And then also, I believe a recording of this will be available on the Facebook page afterwards as well. So I will just do a quick introduction of myself. My name is Michael Cohen. I'm a research associate at the Urban Institute. As Vaughn said, we've been working with the Bridge Park for about 4 or 5 years now on the Equitable Development Plan. And we just released a few briefs about both community power building as well as the relationship of arts and culture and equity. And so, my role within this project has been much more on the nerdier side of things, data, research. So I'm going to ask my much more interesting, cool panel to introduce themselves really quickly before we jump into the questions. So Brittany, if you want to go first, then we'll just go around.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brittany Pope, and I'm the Economic Security Supervisor at Bread for the City. This role as Economic Security Supervisor came about through our work in the Thrive program and Bread's commitment to cash distribution and economic security programs. So I'm really excited to be here to speak with you all today.
Thank you, Brittany. We're excited to have you. And so, Teresa, if you want to jump in.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Teresa Watson. I am the Family Service Coordinator at Montes Table. I've been here for almost 3 years. I work closely with our parents that are enrolled in our early childhood programs, connecting them with resources when it comes to housing, employment, and really just tuning in and really supporting the family overall. And I also was overseeing the enrollment and working with these great people with Thrive. Nikita, thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Nikita Beans, and I'm the Special Projects Coordinator for the Far Southeast Family Strengthening Collaborative. And we are Ward 8's Community Collaborative. And a little bit about the work that I do is at the collaborative, our mission is really just to act as a catalyst for change for residents so that they have the opportunity to live their best lives, to live their productive lives. And so when this opportunity to be a part of the Thrive East of the River initiative came about, 100% our executive director, Dion Bussey Reader, wanted to be a part of this. And so a little bit about what I've been doing with Thrive. Started out working with Scott and Vaughn and the Bridge Park team with some of the media and the marketing, as well as the logo design for the project. And so at the collaborative, we've been doing the resource navigation piece in addition to the enrolling of our families. So that's been my little portion with this project, working with my colleagues.
Great. Thanks, y'all. And so my first question is really take us into the start of all of this work. So you first hear about this program. What was your reaction and how did you start building this partnership? And anyone can jump in as you.
I've been talking and I'm on mute. I'll jump in. So a lot of this started, I would say, from one of our programs that that has manifested from the 11th Street Bridge Park Equitable Development Plan, which is our CLUE program, Community Leadership Empowerment Workshop. And in one of those segments, it really emphasizes partnership and identifying strong partners and how to work with them. And so my director, Scott Kratz, had been in conversations with the executive directors, George, Dion, and Kim from the other organizations, and individually around like, what are some things that we can do to partner together? And so that really is how the initial conversation started, right? It was identifying some other partners within the community that were very mission minded. And we had no idea what it was going to look like. We just knew like it was important for us to come together and to pull together our resources to see how that we can have a, even more of an impact in the community.
Yeah, and I would just say for the collaborative, prior to the pandemic, we do a lot of work around financial fragility. We know that our residents east of the river oftentimes hadn't had the opportunity to really take part of the economics that is, the rest of Washington, D.C. And so when this opportunity came, from Martha's Table and from Bridge Park to Far Southeast with Dion, we 100% knew that we needed to be a part of this. We 100% knew that our residents needed the partnership, they needed the innovation, and that collectively, we had to do it together.
Yeah, and I was super interested in the concept of national guaranteed basic income, universal basic income, and the increasing momentum around it, mostly spurred on by Andrew Yang's presidential campaign. So when I first heard about Thrive, my reaction was like of excitement and pride that our DC local organizations were making a commitment to uplift communities during the pandemic that were already historically marginalized, like Nikita was saying. So, hearing that Thrive really wanted to focus on like wraparound services, not just cash distribution, but like offering money and food and dry goods and resource navigation. Just knowing that it was built on a holistic approach to economic security and fostering mobility for our families to create a more resilient future for them was super exciting. And again, I'm just so proud of the project and our collaboration to make it the success that it's been.
And so a couple of you mentioned, this idea of the collective. Brittany, you talked about the wraparound services. And so I'm curious about what, having partners allowed you to do that maybe your organizations wouldn't have been able to do by themselves?
I would just say communicate, honestly. And I think about the collaborative for our Southeast, collaboration is in our name. And I think about Ward 8. Ward 8 has a plethora of social service organizations, a plethora of nonprofits. But what we all aren't doing is, communicating. And in a time where communication was even further strained and stretched, a pandemic, just us consistently meeting, consistently connecting, connecting the dots, and then filling in the gaps. I think that communication piece for us was critical. I think even for me, my emotional well-being doing this type of work in a pandemic, being able to know that I have partners in this, but also that it was a pilot. We were building the plane as we were flying it. So that really took strong communication. It took it took the collective.
Yeah, and I also appreciated that each organization in our partnership really brought their own strengths to the collaborative. So Bread was the fiscal agent, and we had experience with cash distribution through our representative payee program. So we handled that side of things. B-Bar handled the fundraising, and Martha's Table with the food and dry goods, and Far Southeast with the resource navigation and financial coaching. Like, it really showed that we're stronger together. And I really appreciated that about this partnership. We were also able to collaborate on community events like the vaccine fair in Southeast. It was really successful, and working together on like GBI advocacy, like being on panels like this, talking to different folks that are, interested in planning and thinking about starting GBI pilots, and also just having a weekly time set aside for us to, really talk about what's working, what's not working, and just brainstorm ideas. It's just really been a wonderful collaboration.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, like, one of the things that stood out the most for me was nobody was clamoring to grab the credit, right? We just wanted to impact to have a positive impact in the community. And so, at no time was there any issue where somebody was getting recognition and somebody else wasn't. It wasn't about that for us. It was really, how can we best serve the community? Oftentimes, in the nonprofit world, a lot of organizations are chasing after the same dollars, and they're competing against each other, for the same pot of funding. And it wasn't about that for us. It was really just, how can we work together? And to Brittany's point, how can we lean on each other's strengths, so that, we can serve the community the best way we could.
And so, this chat is called Power and Partnerships. And so from my perspective and my experience, a lot of times, service organizations, particularly when they are from larger organizations, maybe white-led organizations, sort of operate on a more paternalistic sort of, they're coming in to like save the community. And so one of the things that I appreciate about some of the Bridge Park's work is, with Clue, with the community leadership empowerment workshop, there's a real focus on, how do we help provide skills for folks to advocate for themselves, for them to gain sort of and build power with each other. And so I'm wondering how you think about that sort of concept in the Thrive partnership, and how this sort of partnership allows you to do that kind of work.
I'll start with one of the first things that we did as a group was create some core values for our collaborative. And it was how we wanted to treat each other, but more importantly, how we wanted to treat the people that we were serving. And I don't remember what somebody in the panel can maybe has a better memory than me. I'm getting old. I just had a birthday and I'm getting old and I don't remember anymore. But, were things like, we just wanted to be respectful to the community. We wanted to treat them with dignity. Not only were we doing that, but we were treating each other, with dignity, and so that showed up all throughout the work over the last, I guess, year and a year plus now, where we were listening to the residents. Like early on, we were providing food, and Teresa, you can probably talk even more about that. And some of the folks were like, well, we really need this type of food. And so they would go back and make some adjustments on, what we were providing them on a weekly basis. And so, when we start to talk about power and how that shows up, it wasn't us just coming in the community and saying, here, take this. But, we would give them things and then they'd come back and give us feedback, and we would actually implement that feedback into our process. Teresa, you want to share about that at all?
Yes, definitely. And just to echo from what you said, Vaughn, I think it was also important that, our participants knew that they didn't have to provide any type of receipts or what they would be doing with the cash. I did have some participants ask me hey, do I need to have a receipt or send you anything? And I said, no, definitely this 5,500, or if you receive it monthly, is for you, however you want to spend it. And, a lot of them really honed into talking about, hey, they were behind on rent and other utilities, or really helping out family and friends. So to Vaughn's point, yes, Martha's Table provided weekly groceries as well as household items. So we did listen to our participants. They wanted to make meals, and we started, just thinking about, what we like to eat. So we started packaging and providing groceries for families so they can make meals. Even with the monthly household items, we started buying air fryers and toiletries and paper towels and dish soap. So we really wanted them to have these items so they didn't even have to think about using the 5,500 to purchase these items that we can provide for them.
And really with that point too, Teresa, I just appreciate what Vaughn was saying around how we were able to bring the information to you guys and kind of adjust along the way. I think that the families also appreciated that. And then going back to your question, Michael, I think really the unique thing about this program and why we broke the mold is because we were a strength-based program. I believe that we allowed people to prove that they are the experts of their own lives. And so I think that it was important for us to ensure that the funds were unconditional because we trust our families. And what does it look like for us to say, hey, we trust you, and then dictate how you use the gift or limit how you use the gift. And I think that as a nonprofit, more oftentimes than not, a lot of the work that we do is tied to a government grant or is tied to a reimbursement or a sign-in sheet and things like that. And so just having the freedom and the creativity to innovate without barriers was just really phenomenal, for us and for this partnership and being able to serve the families. So, just having this opportunity.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love that. I love that point about residents really knowing what they need. And to that effect, I think one of the really interesting things that I've seen, from the outside in looking at the Thrive work is the sort of idea of, as researchers, a lot of times we are sort of coming in, collecting data, and that process is very distant from community members. And so seeing, this partnership put a focus on bringing folks into that research, bringing folks into that telling of the story of how a program works, I think is also really, really powerful. And so having community researchers actually, informing the takeaways from the work, I think is really interesting. Brittany, it seemed like you were about to jump in.
Yeah. I just wanted to just speak to Nikita's point about Thrive being a strength-based project. I think that's right on. I think that economic stability and mobility in itself equals power. Again, Thrive serves residents of Ward 8, and as I was saying before, they've been historically marginalized from services, businesses like healthy food. So Thrive is literally investing in the residents so they can give back to their own communities as well. and having the power to use the money as they see fit is like super empowering for them, their self-esteem. And also we've heard about participants who've been able to start or invest in their own businesses, and that's so exciting to know that there is a direct impact on the community through Thrive. So yeah, it's awesome.
Brittany, as you were talking about that, and I'm gonna toss the question back to the group as well. One of the things that really impressed me was how all of the executive directors were able to take a step back and trust us to get the work done. I mean, like for the viewers, like you're pretty much looking at most of the core team, but they trusted us to get the job done and to sign people up and to make sure that they're getting the food and they're getting all of the things that were necessary. And they went after the funding for us. But we were able to serve the residents, and you don't have that oftentimes, right? And it was an amazing opportunity to see that happen, not just in my organization, but in other organizations in our community. Where we were all we had the autonomy to really just get the job done. And to work together and to make changes, because we totally had to make some changes. But we had power, in order to really enact change within our community.
And Vaughn, I think with that point too, I think that is what really helped us kind of course correct along the way, because we were so intimately involved with this project, and because we were communicating like every week, meeting weekly, and then talking to the residents daily. I think that's really what allowed us to kind of make those adjustments in real time, which strengthened our program and strengthened our approach,
Vaughn, you mentioned trust. And so I'm really curious about, it seems like this work required both a lot of trust between y'all and the community, but also within the partnership. And so I'm wondering if y'all have thoughts about how did you build that trust?
Oh, I would just say, number one, it first took recognizing that our families and the financial situations and the crisis that they found themselves in happened long before there was a pandemic, right? Yeah. And that we have to recognize that our family's financial situations is a product, right, of centuries of discriminatory practices. And that was the first step in acknowledging that, in order to right that wrong, you have to acknowledge that. And so we just kind of believe really at the collaborative that fundamentally providing the resources, providing that financial coaching, providing that resource navigation is equipping our families with the tools needed, right, to be able to pull themselves out of their situation or to move upwardly mobile, but we can't do that without partners.
Right. And to that point, I think that calls back to the holistic nature of what Thrive is. Like, we're not just giving money and telling you, go do what you need to do. We are, but that it's not that alone. We've basically got your back with support services and again, this we're here as the core team. So there was, speaking to the trust, there was a face to Thrive as well. Not just a lot of the times when the participants deal with government entities, there is no face, there is no personal connection to the services. So with Thrive, there's a built-in sort of network of support services with a personal touch, so that they felt like they could trust us and in turn empower and mobilize themselves and their families.
Yeah, it definitely, Vaughn, you can go ahead. I definitely feel that even in my sort of brief interactions with y'all, it feels a little bit different. Y'all have a little bit of different priorities than I've seen other sort of organizations providing services have. And so you can definitely see how that manifests itself.
I was going to jump in, but it looked like Teresa was unmuting herself, so I wanted to give her a chance to talk first.
I was, thank you. No, just to echo from what Brittany and Nikita said. Yeah, I think a part of trust is just honestly just knowing, like, hey, I know these great organizations, and this participant is asking for this service, and I know if I connect them with Nikita, they're going to get the service they need when it comes around financial literacy. Or if I connect them with Brittany, I can connect them with their need support with legal services, I can connect them with Brett. So I think that was also the beauty of this partnership, is just really just knowing that I can have a trusted a partner to really to provide additional or external resources to not just only Thrive families, but families at Martha's Table. So I think that was just the beauty of it. And then again, the trust is just the families understanding, like, hey, I do have someone I can talk to. I mean, honestly, participants will call me or text me throughout the day, and they were, just following up, or they had questions, and I just wanted to be there for them. And if I didn't have the resource or I had an idea, I had a partner to really just connect them with because of this beautiful partnership.
Yeah, and I would go ahead, Brittany. You were going to say something?
Yeah, real quick. I just wanted to say it's also a testament to the great work that our organizations are doing in the community. Like, our organizations are well known and are trusted. And I think that builds on the participants' confidence and knowing, if I'm going to work with this organization, I know the great work they've done in the community before, and for me and for my family. So it's really helped build the trust for the Thrive Project.
Yeah, I was gonna add, as a part of the pilot, like, one of the things that we wanted to make sure is anybody that was signed up already had a relationship, some kind of relationship with one of the organizations. And so when we start to talk about trust, there was already this relationship and this trust, between the organizations and the residents that were able to sign up. And, that we were asking for things of them, like their social security number or like their account information, in order to go through it. And like, especially now in the midst of the pandemic, like, there are a lot of scams going on, right? And so I think all of us have gotten calls like, wait, you just want to give me money? Is this real? Right? And so we would have to tell them, like, listen, it's real. and kind of just walk them through the process. I don't believe, if we didn't already have these existing relationships with a lot of these residents, that we would have had as many people be willing to sign up, and they would have missed out on an opportunity. And so we kind of talk about, like, how the community has been disinvested or disparaged. And like, one of the manifestations of that is the cynicism and people not trusting anyone, right? And so even when opportunities come available, like, there's a cynicism, like, well, they're out to get me. I mean, we could lift, whether it's the Thrive program, we could talk about the vaccinations as one of those, right? Folks feeling like, well, it's not for our community, they're just out to get us. And so how can we give people the correct information to make informed decisions that are going to be able to benefit them? And the last thing I'll end with, Scott said this quote to me a long time ago, is that change moves at the speed of trust, right? And so as you can build trust, whether that's the trust between the partners or the trust that we have with the residents, as we can build that trust, we can start to see more impactful change take place.
I mean, Vaughn, honestly, I think that you're really speaking to, when you talk about that trust and that relationship, I mean, just seeing even how, like, Brittany touched on it earlier, how that echoed through our other program and how that echoed through our other modes of service delivery, even with like the vaccine event. A huge chunk of those families, right, that we engaged through that were involved in Thrive. And so just building their trust through this program allowed us to work with them, support them through getting, equitable access to vaccines, because, again, we have to acknowledge that our families, here east of the river that we've been serving, were living in a crisis before there was a pandemic crisis. And so I think also having that pre-existing relationship for us with an organization, a larger organization like the Collaborative, it made it fair, because when you have this opportunity to provide $5,500 to, just a fraction, a very small percentage of the families that you serve, it's a hard decision. It's one that can keep you up at night. It's one that kind of can eat at you, but just kind of having those parameters of, okay, we have to have a pre-existing relationship, having that trust so that when I'm calling that family and saying, hey, we have this gift for you, but it's only for you, don't share this link outside of, this email or whatever it may be. They were then able to trust us, number one, and then kind of move in those steps, follow those directions there. So it helped us to keep this pilot contained and also added another level of like fairness, if you want to call it that.
No, and I feel like there's a lot to learn from as we think about a lot of national programs that are trying to, move money and help folks during the pandemic. There's a lot to be learned from the actual creation of trust and trust as a mechanism to help facilitate this kind of work. So I appreciate y'all for highlighting that. And I'm wondering a little bit about, what did you all learn from each other as you did this work? Were there any things that you picked up from other partners that helped change or inform how you do your own stuff?
For me, it was I just wasn't aware of all of the amazing things that the other organizations were doing. Like, I knew bits and pieces of like what Martha Stable did or Far Southeast or Bradford City, but to understand the exhaustive list in programs that everybody was offering was just amazing to me, because it's not like this. Like, we have these armies of staffs, people that are doing this work, and how everybody is just really committed and connected to the community. I think oftentimes when you're doing nonprofit work, you can often feel like you're on an island working to yourself, and you're like, man, and it's just the work it's always a mountain worth of work, and it never feels like you can get it accomplished. And sometimes you just feel like you're alone. And then, I get an opportunity to work with these ladies and others, and it's just like, oh, I'm not doing this by myself, right? Like, I can lean on somebody else, and somebody else is, just doing this amazing work too. So for me, it was just more about understanding the vast resources that were being poured into our community, and two, understanding that I'm not, doing this work alone.
I would just say I came into this project as a LGSW, but 24 years old. Like, this is my first opportunity really right out of grad school. So the youngest person on this team. And so I look forward to those opportunities, learning from each one of my colleagues. Just like Vaughn said, knowing that we weren't alone, because I think that doing this type of work during the pandemic is so heavy. When you make that phone call and a grandmother, just starts praising Jesus in tears, crying, they didn't know how they were going to make it. It really showed you that you were changing a life, but that also was a heavy burden on you, right? So just being able to come to our meetings to share out about that, to figure out how we can take it to the next level. And so I thank my colleagues, for the flexibility, the freedom to innovate. I thank my colleagues for just sharing their information and their resources. And most importantly, I thank them for allowing our wonderful cross-pollination, as I like to call it, to go into other spaces outside of just the Thrive partnership, but into vaccine equity, into the violence intervention work that we're doing, into referring some of our families over to MT for the school. We now have those familiar faces to where we can do what we call a warm handoff. Hey, I can't go to Giant and necessarily get you groceries, but I can call Teresa, I can call Johanna, make sure a bag is packed, by the time I pull up and get there. So we've really been able to just fill the needs of clients outside of just this financial gift. And I'm appreciative for this opportunity to work alongside each and every one of you guys.
Oh, I feel the same, Nikita. And speaking as a native Washingtonian, like, I'm born and raised in DC. I'm from Uptown. Woo-woo. Bradford the City actually has 2 locations, one in Northwest in the Shaw neighborhood and one in Southeast in Anacostia. I mostly work out of the Northwest office. So joining this partnership has really made me feel more connected to my city, to my community. I didn't grow up in Southeast, but I do have family members that did grow up in Southeast. And so getting the opportunity to learn more about the community, learn more about the organizations that are doing such amazing work in the community was super helpful to me professionally and personally. And getting to connect with awesome colleagues like y'all was like, the icing on the cake. And also when Nikita also just mentioned, like when you're talking to the participants and enrolling them and you're hearing how grateful they are. And one of the questions on our enrollment form is like, have you gotten services from any of the other partner agencies? And like hearing like, yeah, I've picked up food from and clothing from Martha's Table, and I have gone to the financial coaching at Far Southeast. Like that is encouraging to hear that there is this wide network in the community. I think it's awesome.
So real quick, just to, I feel like everything that you guys said is exactly how I feel as well. This was my first time really overseeing a program as I transitioned to the family engagement department. So I was really excited and I'm not going to lie, nervous to really start, oversee this program and ensuring like not only our families receive, the cash assistance, but really connecting with you all, which has been great because, as for the past year or so, I just learned more about each organization and how our mission and vision align with one another, with us all being Ward 8 organizations. And again, the testimonies from the families have been honestly just very humbling and just reassuring for me, just making sure that I'm making a difference in their lives. But it's also, like you guys said, I think it's also important that this is like a great network, a huge network for families. And now we have the resources for them just from this partnership.
Yeah, I'll close it before you go to your next question, Michael, is like, I want to point out that we were really intentional on working together before there was any funding available to work together, right? We were going to be very intentional, like how we're going to work together. How can we better serve the community? I think oftentimes people come together just to go after funding. And that's not what this was, right? It was us coming together to better serve the needs of the community. And once we figured out, and once we asked and heard from the community, what are some of those needs to be addressed? Okay, now we can go after some funding. And so I believe that this can be a model for other collaborations and partnerships, both in the city and across the country. Like you don't have to have any funding first, in order to start to collaborate and partner with an organization. Start there, like start with those partnerships and collaborations and listening to the community and finding out what the needs are. And then, you can go after the funding that's necessary.
Yeah, I think intentionality is a phrase that gets thrown out a lot, but it feels like this partnership does have a lot of intent behind it. And so I'm wondering, we've talked about, a lot of positive things that have come out of the partnership, but it's also this very, sort of new, large undertaking. And so I'm wondering if y'all can talk about any of the challenges that came out as you started to do this work.
So I think Dion may kill me for saying this, but I think for me, my challenges kind of came a little bit more so like internally. So, all of us were responsible for rolling out this initiative at our organizations. And so I think one of my biggest challenges was kind of getting everybody on board, right? Or other staff on board. I think that we're very used to a certain way of doing business. Like I said, tying it to a grant, tying it to a sign-in sheet, an assessment, whatever it may be, tying it to, okay, you have to take this financial literacy class or, whatever those parameters are. But just, convincing other individuals that hey, if we say we trust these families, let's show them, like, let's embody that, like, let's present that to them, so just kind of getting our team internally on board, I think, was hard. But then I think the other piece for me that was really a challenge is thinking about the what's next. So I think that our program is doing a phenomenal job overall of providing that immediate relief in the crisis, but just looking at how can we further remain connected to these families as they continue to weather their own, crisis or this pandemic. And so I think for me, knowing that we did a good job is really great, but I'm challenged by like, okay, what else can we do? And so I think those were my biggest two challenges.
I think for us, we didn't realize how much work it was going to be, and how much staffing time it was going to take to implement the program. Because as Nikita said it earlier, we were literally building this plane while it was flying. I mean, like Nikita's like, this was kind of one of her first experiences. I think this was all of our first experience with this type of program. And so it was a lot of learning on the fly for all of us and making some adjustments, and making sure we weren't making adjustments too late into the process. And so, that was definitely a challenge, where, some of the things we were just learning and it wasn't going as well as we would hope. And so we'd have to kind of shift and say, all right, well, maybe we should do this. And, sometimes it feels like you're throwing good money at bad money. You're like, all right, should we just continue to go down this road, or do we just need to go ahead and change it now? And so that was certainly a challenge. And then I think the other one for me was being able to, we had to say no to so many people, right? This was a pilot of only 500 people. And, we probably needed 10 times that amount of money within our own respective community. And so having to say no to people is challenging, because they need it. But we had certain criteria, for people to be involved in the program, and we hope to use the success of it to encourage the city, to promote more fundings or go after like a universal basic income or something of that nature, because there are certainly families in our community, and not just in Ward 8, but across the city, that are in need of a program like this.
So I would have to just agree as well. I think once Thrive, the word got out, I think everybody's inbox was full and everyone's phone was ringing. And like what Vaughn said, for enrollment, you had to have an existing relationship or be part of a program at each organization. So it was kind of difficult to really turn down or say no to those who inquired about Thrive. So I feel like, hopefully, we're thinking about just continuing this partnership. It'll be great to open it up to other wards, because even with the word getting out, it wasn't just Ward 8, it was Ward, those who live in Ward 4, Ward 1, and, me just trying to continue to connect them to resources. But yeah, I would just say that was just a big takeaway, or maybe like a challenge for me. Just honestly, just have to say no, and just explaining why. And then also trying to just connect everyone who was interested or needed some support during this pandemic.
Yeah.
Touch on the policy piece or that challenge, maybe, Brittany?
Sorry?
I said, maybe do you want to touch on that policy challenge?
Oh, yeah. As far as what, like the eligibility stuff? Yeah. I mean, as much as we work so well together, we're still individual agencies that have individual, eligibility requirements and things. So like that was a challenge as far as locking down like what our policies are and to stay consistent with that. Yeah, it was a lot. Saying no was my least favorite thing because, you got, once word gets out, like your neighbors, you're telling your neighbors, your friends, your family members. It, it highlighted the need across the city. So, like Vaughn said, like I hope that shows, and also we have to mention the good work that Urban Institute is doing as far as like researching this project, and with the field guide that should be coming out soon. I hope that'll get attention, City Council, and get us some more funding to make our program stronger and more. It's already, I think it's super successful, but even more successful and effective in the future.
If I could add, I think that piece around early on when we were kind of debating or looking into could residents lose their benefits, I think that was maybe one of the greatest challenges collectively that this pilot has had is, $5,500 is not a lot of money in the grand scheme, and if you have a couple $1,000s in back rent or car that needs to be fixed, whatever that may be, that you really need that lump sum amount, but knowing that could potentially, we thought early on could potentially impact, your benefits, that could impact your Medicaid, your Medicare, your Social Security. I think that was one of the scariest parts of piloting this project.
Yeah, and to add on to what Nikita's saying, in the power of the partnership, Bread for the City had folks that were offering pro bono legal services, so that we could refer residents to them to say, hey, like, we're not the experts. We don't want to tell you what to do. Have a conversation with these attorneys so that they can let you know what's your best course of action, right? Is that doing a monthly disbursement? Is it getting just one lump sum? Or, how is it going to have an impact on you, if you receive these funds? And so, again, it wasn't us making a decision for anyone, but it was just giving them as much information as possible so that they can make an informed decision, for their own family.
Yeah, that was super key. Like, thank goodness for our legal team too. I think that really set, speaking especially to trust too, like knowing that, like, I'm going to speak with a public benefits attorney to know what my rights are and to know, just completely understand how participating in the program will affect my benefits was meant all the difference for a lot of our participants. And also it's opened up a world of like, policy advocacy around public benefits and waivers for the future so that people's, Medicaid and food stamps and TANF aren't affected. Super important.
For sure. I also think that, I think a couple of you highlighted the fact that even, if you're working within this partnership and trying to do it in a different way, you're still operating within, these other systems and structures that, weren't set up to be flexible for people. And so it's really important and powerful that you all, set up an infrastructure to really respond to that. And so I also want to highlight again, we have time for questions. If folks have questions that you have for this wonderful panel, drop them in the comments section. I'll probably go ahead and ask another question, but if folks have things they want to ask, feel free to drop it in. And so the last question that I want to ask is really around, as in thinking about the concept of this work expanding or other folks taking up similar work, similar partnerships, what would be your advice to other folks trying to do similar programs, or even, to yourselves as you think about this program, potentially inspiring other work in DC?
I would have to say the first thing is to really, if you're thinking about just partnering with other community organizations in your, in the community, that you guys' mission and vision align. I think that's the key for all of us. I think we all wanted to impact all Ward 8 residents in a real great way when it comes to cash assistance, which is, like Nikita said, has been a need before the pandemic. I also would say just have honestly a team. I mean, yes, we were the four that really were just, overall like helping enroll folks. But also I had a team under me supporting all the applications because it's a heavy lift and it can require more than just one person. So if you're thinking about, hey, I'm maybe an enrollment team of like 2 or 3 people that can assist with calls, applications. If someone wants to call about have questions about the program, definitely just thinking about developing like a team that really will just support enrollment.
Yeah, we have one of the things I always like to share when I'm doing presentations is just that the answers are always in the community, right? And so we don't have to go in and try to force people to choose from like a list of things or just to have one thing, but we can go in and understand that, as Nikita said earlier, they are the experts of their own lives, right? And so sometimes oftentimes when organizations are going in to do work, they don't take enough time, or they don't trust that the residents can make the best decisions for their own lives. And so what I would encourage any organization that's interested in doing, whether it's work around universal basic income or anything else, trust that the residents can make the best decisions, for their own lives. And, we can listen to them and seek after resources that are going to help them that are going to help provide solutions for, what they're telling us the solutions are. But it's not us just saying like, all right, we're going to give you this $5,500 and you have to spend it on your housing and that alone. No, here's your $5,500. You do with it whatever you need to do with it, right? When we start to talk about equity, you can't talk about equity if you're not talking about the power of choice, right? And oftentimes when you're talking to impoverished communities, what they want are options, what they want are choice, and they don't want to be told what to do, right? But they want to be able to have the power of choice so they can choose, for themselves.
And I 100% echo everything that Teresa and Vaughn have said. I think just really, like we said, being mindful and being intentional about who those partners are and what those partners bring to the table. I think that really doing a clear, clean assessment of, what's happening, what has happened, right? And then what are those gaps before you move forward? I think, and then lastly, just knowing that having those values, knowing that those values are there, knowing that those values are something that you can come back to, that you can refer to, just really knowing the power and having those values as you move forward. I think that it helps, as you run into roadblocks, as you're looking at things. I think for us, going back to that challenge thing, that digital divide, but because we had those values in place, we were prepared to tackle obstacles such as a digital divide. We're prepared to tackle obstacles such as, potentially losing public benefits. We had the guidance right there, whether it was from residents in the community, the partnership, or those values that we created collectively.
Yeah, echo everything. Y'all said it all. I mean, like, also just, again, building on that trust, like the communities know what they need. I don't know, maybe have a listening session or something to really let the community know that, like, hey, we are interested in helping. We want you to be a part of the planning. Let us know every step of the way what would be helpful. And then again, like, just really reaching out to other organizations in your community doing similar work, just to see how to combine your strengths to generate this community power. Again, we're stronger together. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. And so here's a question. We know one of the ways in which the community power, folks' own power is sort of undermined, is the sort of constant struggle, to survive. It's hard to mobilize, it's hard to organize when folks are sort of not stable. And so what do you think this work helping to stabilize folks during this pandemic might do for their future economic mobility, their future ability to live in their own power?
I think starting off, it just provides people hope, right? And once you have a little bit of, it's amazing what you can do with just a little bit of hope. Oftentimes, we can work with folks that have just been in such despair, where it just seems like, it's almost like that rain cloud continuing to hang over them. And they just need one break. And like this $5,500, it's not a lot of money, but for some folks, it's a lot of money. And so it's providing them that break. And so whether it's to start their own business that they've been wanting to start, for the entire adulthood, or whether it's for them to pay back payment on rent, like it just releases those burdens. And so we're already dealing with folks that have a lot of stresses, and they're not all financially attached, but when you can just relieve some of that burden, it's amazing how we've been able to see some of our residents just be able to prosper even now, right? We're not even out of the pandemic, but to be able to prosper because they don't have to worry about how they're going to pay their mortgage this month, or they didn't have to worry about how they're going to feed their family. It just really was able to relieve a lot of burdens.
And I 100% agree, Bon. And I always say, sometimes people just need a hand up. Everybody's not looking for a handout. Sometimes people just need a hand up. And the thing that I challenge myself every day and my team is, be somebody's luck. Like think of a time in your life where a little bit of luck impacted you. And then take this program and put that into perspective. And so I think about, I had a mom, and she had 17 and 18-year-old daughters, and she told me, this money made her feel sexy. That's what she said. She was able to go into the store for the first time in her children's life and buy them brand new clothes for school, buy them brand new shoes. She's never been able to do that. And so for me as a woman and working with a Black woman, to a Black mom, that impacted me a lot because I saw that, that also changed the way her children looked at her, the way that she engaged with them, and so their relationship is better. We had a mom who was able to go into the grocery store and swipe her card and pay for somebody else's groceries. That made her feel good because she's had to have somebody swipe for her. So we're seeing that this money and this gift and these resources have really just boosted the confidence of our families so that now, they're able to say, you know what, maybe I can now focus on going back to school, or maybe I can focus on getting a more sustainable job, because their overall confidence and belief in themselves and that hope factor is there now.
Yeah, I totally agree. And along with the grocery and dry goods, and also the financial coaching and resource navigation, like holistically, all of those together are building blocks to that confidence. It's so powerful. It really is. All the testimonies we've heard just really speak to how meaningful this project has been in this community.
Yeah, I mean, as someone sort of watching this happen a bit removed, hearing the sort of actual workings of it, learning about, hearing the stories, I think is really, really incredibly powerful. And I want to thank y'all for sharing your truths, sharing your experience. I think it was really super informative. And I don't know, Vaughn, if you want to close us out.
Sure. Michael, thank you so much for moderating this discussion. We appreciate you and just keeping us on task. I certainly want to thank Nikita, Teresa, and Brittany for joining me today and being able to kind of just celebrate some of the amazing accomplishments that we've been able to do over the last year plus. I'm certainly thankful for all of our viewers that tuned in today. Please join us again on September the 29th at noon again for the last of our community conversations. And thank you all. We hope that you enjoy the rest of your week. Appreciate it. Have a good one.